Former USA citizens now living in European countries, what minor cultural change was the hardest for you to adjust to? Moved to the UK in 2014. The British are emotionally different, not as gregarious and open as Americans. Being here a while now, I've learned that once you make a British friend, they're your friend forever. But for the first year or so it was quite lonely. I felt like no one liked me, which wasn't the case at all. They just don't show it and they're awkward and bone dry all the time. I now love this and have great affection for my adopted countrymen. It's funny you say that, as I moved to the US from the UK 2 years ago. I find Americans to be nice on the surface and really friendly. However, I find it all superficial, but if you manage to get through that layer, they're a friend for life. When I studied in Switzerland, the supermarkets closed around 6 every day except when they were closed on Sundays. Since I was often still working on my projects at school and making my way home by the times the shops closed, Saturday was my only shopping day. If I forgot or was busy during that time period, I would starve until Monday, and that was that. No way was I paying 21 francs, over $25 at the time, for a slice of pizza, a Coca-Cola, and some fries at a restaurant. That's basically just Switzerland and Germany though. Rest of Europe shops in the evening and on Sundays. In the UK, my local Tesco Extra, large grocery store, is open 24/7. Waiters and service people in general, not being proactive or dropping by just to check on you. Even though I know it's what I'm supposed to do, I still feel rude having to flag someone down to order or ask for the check. My first date living in Europe did not go well. What made it worse was the 2 hours I waited for the dang check. I've never been a US citizen, but I lived there for some time. When I came back to Europe, my homeland of Poland, I couldn't get used to that smiling to random people on the street or just casually starting small talks with people is not a thing you do here. I got many weird stares. Dutch birthday parties. Having to kiss everyone in the room upon arrival and departure, and spending the event sitting in a circle eating oddly seasoned nuts. Oh, believe me, a lot of Dutch PPL, including me, hate that as well. My family never does the kissing, but where I live everyone does, including the neighbors. Going grocery shopping every day. If you're in a city and have no car, you gotta lug whatever you buy with you. It's also just normal to swing by the supermarket every day, I think. Also, everything, and I mean everything, is closed on Sundays. So the doors don't open the same. In the US, the doors almost always open away from you on the inside and you pull from the outside. This is a fire safety regulation. In the UK at least it is never consistent, and I always open the wrong way. Also, it's a lie that Britain uses metric. They do something worse than metric or imperial. They mix them, it's so annoying. School uniforms are a pain, and it's also weird how judgy people are based on people's accents. In America, you can't really tell how much money someone makes off of their accent. American living in the UK, are you alright as a greeting. Still, after nearly a decade of hearing it, I get confused thinking I must look awful. Nope, just another way to say, how are you? Maybe one day I'll adjust. Last year I spent 9 months in Ukraine. The women there are always dressed to the freaking nines. Even just going grocery shopping. One girl there explained to me that, since clothes are so expensive there, one pair of jeans can be 2 months' salary, easily. The women only buy really nice clothes that will last them. They don't buy simple stuff that they can throw on and be casual, so they're always dressed up even in day-to-day activities. Even their casual jeans and t-shirts are still things that I see girls here wear on nights out. The women there are always dressed to the freaking nines. I visited Kiev years ago, 2011 I think, and noticed this too. It was great. This was a long time ago and I'm not sure if it's still like this, but I lived in Sicily for 2 years. Getting used to trying to get anything accomplished during siesta. Gas stations even along the highway not being open on Sundays. The crazy driving through narrow streets. Everything will be done domani, but it's never actually done by tomorrow. Half-finished houses. Dodging Vespa bandits. Lots of things to get used to, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Just got back from Sicily last week. Siestas and closed gas stations aren't really a thing anymore. Didn't run into any Vespa bandits. Crazy narrow street driving is still crazy. Also depending on when you lived there. Palermo used to be nice. Absolute trash heap now. Everyone eats next to nothing by American standards. People don't gorge themselves, so sometimes it was quite daunting to go round someone's house on the weekend and all they have until supper is tea and a tiny cucumber sandwich. Or order a coffee and get a tiny espresso. Don't get me wrong, I love these things, but I was raised with a scarcity mindset, so I had to unlearn those habits. Tea and a tiny cucumber sandwich. Went to visit my grandparents in England and this was all they had as well. My dad had to sneak us an extra couple of biscuits but got caught out by his mom, who lectured him like he was still 7 years old. Currently in UK for the last 4 years. Walking everywhere and a lot of people don't have driver's licenses, which is weird for me coming from South Carolina and now living in a large city. Definitely the humor and the way people joke. Like no one will actually say they're kidding. I always feel like I have to guess. The sarcasm is strong, so sometimes I'm just not sure. Especially being in Scotland. Also all the tax being included in the price. You actually pay what the ticketed price is. No more adding extra for each item you put in your shopping basket. What? Like no one will actually say they're kidding. Well, of course not. That kills the joke. I have lived in Malta for over 3 months now. Things I miss from the US. Ice. Free water and refills at restaurants. American junk food like Cheez-Its. The vast variety of restaurants available in the US. And pharmacies just have drugs and not tons of other crap that CVS and Walgreens have. I went to a restaurant a few days ago that gave out free bottled water instead of tap water. It was weird. For me, it was the waste disposal and separation system. In the US, all I really had to do was separate the trash from the recycling and put 2 bins out on a curb each week. But when I moved to Germany, I had to separate everything into plastics, paper, cartons, cans, cardboard, non-recyclable waste, organic waste, glass, etc. Then, I had to make like 3 stops throughout the city to get rid of all of it. I'd have to stop by the nearest set of neighborhood recycling bins, Wurststoffenzellen, out on the street to dispose of most of my recyclables. Then I had to go to the small neighborhood supermarket to get rid of any batteries and plastic bottles. And finally I had to go to the actual waste management center to dispose of things like electronics and such. I literally had to look up a guide published by the US Army garrison in Stuttgart every time I took out the trash, just so I didn't accidentally throw something in the wrong bin. I lived in Germany for a significant portion of my life. By far the biggest cultural changes surrounded stores. How everything aside from restaurants were closed after 8 PM and not open on Sundays. I couldn't go frick around at grocery stores at 3 AM with friends or do really anything in the wee hours of the morning that involved going out unless there was a festival going on or something. I came back to the States years ago, but I honestly kind of miss it there. Where I live we have the night shops. They are a blessing when you need something after 8 PM. Polish people just do not seem to need to hydrate with water. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know if they absorb water through the air or what. And I'm not diabetic, nor especially large, but I feel like I'm the only one buying a huge bottle of water every time I pass the convenience store. You can't have a birthday party a couple days before your birthday in Germany. You can't wish someone a happy birthday a day or 2 before their birthday, even if you won't see each other for a long time. It's considered very bad luck. Currently living in the Czech Republic. Customer service here is not the same at all, with workers becoming visibly upset with you if you inconvenience them. This is especially true if you pay with big bills like 1000 or 2000 CZK for anything under 500 CZK. God, I wish that was me. I found myself becoming irritable with customers at work today and had to correct myself. If I'm crappy to the customers, they get crappy back, and they leave bad reviews, which leads to my hours getting cut. Customer service is the 37th circle of heck. Not a European country, but living in Japan. One thing that drives me totally up the wall is that people don't open a bag of chips from the top. They open it along the side and use chopsticks to grab the chips. I remember I saw a co-worker eating hot Cheetos with chopsticks so she wouldn't get her keyboard dirty. I looked at her like she's some supreme alien species came to teach us. Stupid earthlings. Infinite wisdom. Not a US citizen, but I lived in the USA for a good while and then had to move back to Europe. What annoys the heck out of me is having to plan where to park. Always and anywhere. I have to think about what time to get home because the streets may be full and there is nowhere to park within 2-3 blocks. Garages are not a thing. I have to leave early for work to have a chance to park somewhere. When I need to grab something from a store, I have to check if that store has a parking lot, or if not, if there's a parking lot somewhere close. If I go to the supermarket in the city center with a long shopping list, chances are I have to pay for parking or worse, I'm towed, because I spent over an hour in that store. And if I couldn't grab something because my parking time is running out, and then realize I need item after 10 PM or on a Sunday, I'm just out of luck because everything is closed. TBF. I live in Philly and I'll leave family parties because it's Saturday and I won't find parking. No free water in many countries in restaurants. France is a noticeable exception. And no free public toilets, even in some stores. Paying a few cents or up to €2 to use a bathroom is wild. And smokers. Smokers everywhere. Smoking in front of kids, in train stations. Old men smoking cigars and pipes on the street. Very smelly and annoying at times. I've never had a problem getting free water in the UK. Never been into a restaurant and asked for tap water and been told no. I moved to Germany half a dozen years ago, Leipzig specifically. Anyway, one thing is that being nice to strangers is highly frowned upon here. People in the stores act like they're pissed off that you want to buy crap from them. A smile and a wave will get you looked at like Ted Bundy, and saying something like "Hey, cool t-shirt" to a woman is akin to asking her to frick. Like, "Hey lady, calm down, I'm married, I just like that band too." Anyway, I don't let that change me. If people wanna think that I'm a serial killer and bad at flirting, that's their problem. For the most part I prefer it here though. I definitely feel it's a better place to raise kids. Not being able to pet people's dogs. People in the States were usually so friendly about it. I'm not saying all Europeans, but the ones I've come in contact with look like they are going to knife me if I try to ask to pet their dog. I've been told that it is the same in China. You can touch their kids, but stay away from the dog. Never looking sloppy, even if you are just running some errands or picking the kids up, etc. I lived in Portugal for a year and once, a friend refused to get out of his car when he was dropping me off somewhere because he was underdressed. The dude was wearing shorts, a tank top, and flip-flops. I was so baffled. I chuckled. You would fit in well in San Diego, where I am from. Anything more than flip-flops is overdressed there. This for sure. I had to up my clothing game so much when I moved to the UK. Everyone here is always dressed nicely. My base casual used to be jeans, t-shirt, sweatshirt, ratty tennis shoes. Now it's dark jeans, nice top, sweater or cardigan, leather shoes. Whenever I go back to the US to visit, I get asked why I am so dressed up all the time. While I like the accents, there are some minor language differences that I still can't really accept, internalize. I will always orient myself rather than orientate myself. If you ask me what's the crack, my first thought will still be that you're talking about drugs. Revising before an exam sounds to me like you're changing things rather than reviewing them. I never remember to change Z's, I mean Z's, to S's. And I still can't bring myself to pronounce the T's in Philly or Valet. I assume you're in Ireland. Based on crack, we definitely don't pronounce valet with the T. I now live back in the US after living in France and Switzerland for 2 years, but the hardest cultural change for me to follow was using public transport rather than my own car. It saved me so much money over the course of my time there. Silence. I'm from the USNY for all of my adult life, and it's loud. On a bus, people are talking. In the grocery store, people are talking. Standing in a line waiting, people are talking. Here, in Estonia, it's silent. 75 people on a bus and you can hear a pin drop. A single line open at the grocery store after work and 30 people waiting? Yup, you got it. Silent. At a shopping mall, mid-December, and it's full of people but all you can hear are footsteps. I'm not sure I'll ever get fully used to it. In some ways, it's nice, but in other ways, it's very isolating. As a native German, 90% of the things people are claiming about Germany in this thread is making me wonder if I actually live in Germany. Moved to Prague from Atlanta. Honestly, feeling so free was the hardest. Safety? I feel safer alone drunk on a Friday night at 3 AM on a dark street than I did in the US on my couch. Legal. Safer and cheaper. Weed, other drugs? Buy 'em in a bar. Police don't care. It's a small fine if you're caught, but they don't even do that. Healthcare, $98 a month, 100% coverage. Mental health and previous conditions included. Not needing a car insurance, car payment, petrol because Europe actually has functioning public transport. Haven't seen a gun in 2 years. Despite not speaking the language, people interact with each other more here and you're much more likely to make friends with a stranger in public and not worry about being cut into pieces. People take their voting and civil duties much more seriously. Honestly, the hardest thing has been remembering to bring my own bag when I go shopping. Everything else has been wonderfully pleasant. I think because they lost their freedoms so long under USSR rule, they cling to them and fight for every little thing. Maternity, paternity leave, 6 weeks vacation, mandatory holidays for businesses so workers can have family time. Tax rate for me is about 13% compared to 34% back home. Come visit Prague, I'll smoke you out and show you around. I am Czech and I feel like you were talking about completely different country than the one where I spent my whole life, haha. Very specific, but I play in a baseball league here in Austria and it blows my mind a bit how they deal with competition and specifically baseball. For them it is a very casual hobby and winning is not at all important, both in this and in other game sports. I find it borders almost on disrespect as they often frick around and love casually cheating. For me it's a challenge to hold my competitive side in check while any American league in almost anything is always at least casually competitive. That seems to track with what I understand about Europeans and sports in school. They don't take it nearly as seriously as American students do. Police where I live don't carry guns and are, for the most part, way more friendly than their American counterparts. I actually talked to one of them about not being nervous around them and he said it was because they didn't carry guns. It's taken me a while to adjust to this actually, because when I lived in the US and was near cops it would make me nervous as heck even though I didn't do anything bad. It's never been the sidearm that's kept me from talking with police officers here in the US. It's often the attitude. There are plenty that are friendly and personable, but there are also plenty that have the respect my authority attitude. Celsius instead of Fahrenheit just doesn't work in my head. 24 hours clock no problem. Metric, yeah alright, but Celsius? Just can't feel what 14 degrees is supposed to be. Welcome to the rest of the world, where we feel the exact same thing about all of you US people. Cash is the preferred method of payment here, and a lot of the time you cannot pay with card. You learn pretty quick to carry cash on you at all times. It's funny, the opposite is true in Sweden. I've never seen a krona note. Everyone uses cards or mobile payment for everything, except public restrooms, which is the only reason I've ever seen the coins. Asked my wife. Customer service here in the UK is poor compared to the US. Opening times of shops. A lot of things closed on Sundays. On a more personal level it was a complete change of environment. No friends or family nearby. No job to begin with, and no easy way of getting around town or knowing how to get somewhere. Don't live in Europe anymore, but the lack of ice. If I'm paying €4 for water that's not even bottled, I want it to be ice cold. Get out of here with that cold water that'll turn lukewarm in the summer heat before my food comes out nonsense. My friend lived in England before moving to New Jersey. We met in high school. He said the biggest change for him was the patience of people. The tri-state area, New York, New Jersey and Connecticut, have really impatient citizens. It's the famous everyone has somewhere to go, places to be attitude in full swing. That's also why we don't really stop and wave as much as other regions of the US. I live in France, and for some reason a lot of the public restrooms don't have toilet seats or toilet paper. I've even been to one that was a hole in the ground. Living abroad almost 3 years now. I also take into consideration I live in a smaller city, even though it's the third largest city in the country. I came from a huge metropolitan city in the States, so some of the adjustments was also living in a smaller city in addition to cultural changes, paying for things I didn't usually pay for, like dining out, paying for to-go boxes and water, not a drop of tap water in a cup in sight, paying for public restrooms practically everywhere. Basically very small expenses you are used to not paying in the States. Next is the demeanor of people. In general, people are less friendly and polite in public. When shopping at the grocery store, people will reach around you and grab what they want as you are in the way instead of saying excuse me or something like that. Another thing I would say is I lack fulfilling my consumer needs and in somewhat convenient places. Almost all food services, bars, shops, etc. are in the central downtown area. Only thing you find is grocery stores or smaller markets. Things close much earlier and a lot of times are closed altogether on the weekends, especially Sunday. Lastly, I would say the food. Not the quality per se. I know most European cultures really pride themselves on their cuisine and I've enjoyed a lot of it. It could very well be this country, but a lot of foods are too dang sweet. I know what you're thinking, how can an American say that? Because it's the dang truth. Just one example, I had a baguette sandwich with this spread that basically tastes like ketchup mixed with sugar. Besides the taste flavor, you do end up missing food diversity you could get in the States. Having health insurance and being encouraged to go to the doctor when I am sick. When I was in the US, it was natural to only go when you were on the verge of death, and your workplace made you get them a copy of the report. If you didn't, they could, and would, fire you. Here in Germany, my worker says, "Are you okay? Do you need to go to the doctor? Don't worry, we will be fine." Spent some time in Glasgow a couple months, and the one thing that struck me the most was all the litter. Some of the streets were really gross tbh because there would be huge piles of trash on the corner. Also, after a Friday night there you would literally be walking on a layer of cigarette butts. Another thing is that you can't buy alcohol after 10 p.m. Made for some big disappointments on certain nights. You could buy alcohol at bars and restaurants but not at a store. Anyways, all the restaurants closed at like 9, which was also annoying. That's Scottish alcohol laws. They are a lot stricter than the rest of the country. You can buy alcohol in any supermarket, corner shop, newsagent etc. in the rest of the UK. US citizen living in Belgium. It is so hard to deal with my space being constantly invaded. They just don't have the same sense of a privacy bubble. A grocery line should come with a trigger warning. Every old lady is up my butt. They're looking at an American butt. Eating at 8 p.m. or later was the norm in the Basque Country where I lived. It threw me for a loop for the longest time, and I would always be starving when I first moved because I still ate lunch at noon. I've spent a couple months in France now, and the small cups for water is something I can't get used to, and I feel a little bit self-conscious because I drink so much more water than French people. But the alternative is being dehydrated when I'm not at home, which isn't really a viable option. Are French people just always dehydrated? Or is there some kind of genetic difference? I really can't tell. Oh well, uncarafe dos s'il vous plaît. It's weird. For all the talk of socialism equals bad that exists in the United States, things aren't even that different. It's just that a billion things are slightly different for the better, which leads to a much better life overall. Free healthcare is pretty great. Crime and pollution barely exist. Everyone is middle class or wealthier and in much better health than the whales in the States. Outstanding public transportation exists everywhere, making the need for personal transportation, aside from maybe a bike, completely obsolete. Bigotry and prejudice have no real place here, to the point where I no longer even think in black or white but German, French, British, etc. I used to worry that I would get sick and it would bankrupt my entire family. Now I worry that people think I'm intellectually inferior because I only speak 3 languages and don't know that much about art. Still a USA citizen, but I will answer in a ho. German kids allowed to work their crap out on the playgrounds. Parents still watching to make sure no physical harm or fights. But growing up in the USA where sharing is caring, and after I adjusted to it, I liked it. Plus my 5 kids would learn to band together to take on any lone wolf bullies. Again, no physical violence, but they figured out how to overcome adversity. And in the UK, aluminium versus aluminum. Hard as frick, and I refuse to say the first. No matter how kind you are, German kids are kinder. Just a reminder to all the Americans out there, Europe is not a country, so there might be a lot of variation between, say, the UK and Ukraine. As a Frenchman, I've found that a lot of what I've read in this thread absolutely doesn't apply to where I live. I pay with my card everywhere. My eggs are in the fridge. Waiters come to ask if I want the check. I can pet strangers' dogs. So, definitely don't take this thread as truths about the whole of Europe. And people that onto the thread, please indicate which country you're talking about, to avoid misinformation being spreaded. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.